Mere Mortals, welcome back to another edition of the Mere Mortals podcast. I am Juan.
I'm Karen.
And we are the Mere Mortals podcast hosts. The crew right here. As well as the many Mere Mortal folks that are out there. Now today, I actually wanted to talk about some of the COVID learnings. So I have seen this done to the nth degree online.
Yeah,
whether it's what's the COVID learnings for businesses, what's the COVID learnings for people, for other things. I thought, all right, let's put our own Mere Mortals spin to it. Maybe a couple of things that haven't been discussed and talked about. And I actually brought up, there's 10 different things that I actually sort of scrounged around and thought around that I wanted to talk through. And I want to get your thoughts on each one of these as well. But I'll touch on one big one first, and we'll see how that compares to how you felt, because I think you had a very different experience with COVID.
Yeah, probably. All right, so mine will be a little bit about just fear in general, especially public fear, and then a couple of personal things, and then I suppose a reflective look as a whole.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm gonna jump on what you just said then in terms of the public fear, the big one. I'm gonna skip ahead with a couple of stuff that I had, and I'm gonna go to the third one. So, we sometimes have deep conversations, and this one's going to be a little bit of a lighthearted touch.
Good.
So I put down, in a crisis, I think people still panic buy, even when there's no shortages. I mean, we saw this with toilet paper, we saw a lot of things. But I saw this as well on crypto, shares, everything else. I feel like even in a panic, no matter what it might have been, and obviously for COVID, it just opened my eyes to go, I feel like this has happened before. And I went back and I checked an example, not of the 2008 Great Financial Crash, but I think it was the 1937 financial crash, where something similar happened as well, where everyone was just panicking and everything got dropped and everything, they started being panic bought as well. Yeah. So I think there was just this absolute holistic, like everybody just panicking, fearing the absolute worst of what it actually ended up being.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so just stock-wise for me, so my portfolio dropped by 30 to 40%.
Okay.
Just over, just
I just rented his shirt.
Over a 3-week period. Yeah. And it's like, well, it's sort of weird because that's when it's taking into account nothing's actually happened yet. So a couple of countries have closed some borders, but nothing has physically happened to make the share price drop.
Yeah.
But then it's like, okay, well, taking into account what will happen in the future. And then of course, right now it's back to where it was. So it's sort of like, okay, well, that was fun.
Yeah.
Fun little adventure.
One thing that it made me be able to see, broadly, and this is not just like an individual, what I saw, but broadly across the whole of the community, is that no matter if you have a particular view of something, it'll generally be the consensus of whatever group that you are in that will determine what's going to happen. So I even found myself in some conversations being like, I'm not going to panic buy buying toilet paper. That's dumb. And if I had a conversation maybe one-on-one with someone, I would still say that. But even I got swept up into all of these conversations, in maybe a lot of people at work were talking about it. It was on the radio, it was online, everywhere. I almost sort of turned my hand. People were like, oh, this is happening, where it started getting introduced into my conversations with a family and saying, they would say, oh, we bought you an extra toilet paper. And I'd be like, oh, good. I'm glad they did, just in case. And, we did get to a point that it's like, oh, there's no toilet paper around. What the hell? But I think we get carried away with the consensus of the group much more than sticking around to the individual's thoughts.
Yeah. So I actually tried looking this up a little bit about, I don't know what to call it, public fear, collective fear. There wasn't really a name for it. So there's names for things like mass hysteria, where everyone will believe something, or mass psychosis, or mass whatever. Everyone believes a certain thing, everyone feels a certain thing. Yep. But there was none specific for fear, and I thought that was quite strange because, I imagine that's a real common one. Throughout the ages, bubonic plague's coming. That you'd think there'd be a name for the anxiety, I guess, that is produced by a whole country. Everyone just going like, "Holy shit, we're in for some trouble." So I just wanted to reflect on maybe a time where I've felt something similar. So for me, the worst period of COVID, I can nail almost to a specific day, which was probably about mid-April-ish. So in Australia, we didn't really have bad stuff happening. You were still thinking of going to Japan and
Exactly.
early March.
Yeah. Yep.
It was going, end of March was where it's like, oh shit, bad stuff's going to happen. And yeah, there was just one particular instance where, height of the toilet paper craze, height of the
stocks crashing.
Yeah, stocks crashing and stuff like that, where I was in the supermarket, I was buying stuff and just had this, like, there was just a tenseness in the air. Everyone was sort of feeling it, even though it was, there was no real, we didn't have to wear masks yet. We didn't have to do anything in particular. But like the lady behind me at the line was like getting real short because I wasn't packing my bags fast enough. I was like, the shit.
Yeah.
So that was just like, I don't know. Did you have that same sort of feeling where it was just you could almost feel like the anxiety in the air, something like that?
Yeah, I felt it. And this is not a hit on Australians. And I don't think it's a hit on individuals, but I think it's more as a society as a whole across like probably anywhere that you're listening to this, where when things like that were going down, everybody retracted to the shell of like the individual and the immediate group around them. So I had similar experiences where I was in the shopping center and I was going to grab a bag of vegetables and people were coming around like sprinting around the corner like they're about to kill you for this bag of vegetables.
Yeah.
And it made me think like, okay, COVID was, and let's call it out, we didn't feel affected too much in a personal sense, but I've known plenty of people who did. So like it isn't like it was nothing. But if you were to compare it to, let's just say we went into World War III right now, and then it got serious in terms of shortage of food or shortage of anything else, or you had to band together, it kind of struck me as, we would not know how to do that nowadays. Like I was like, there was enough tension even when it was manageable. Like, there was companies, like the toilet paper company saying, it's okay. Like we have stock. Coles and Woolies are like, we have so much damn stock. You don't even have to do this. And people are doing it anyways.
Yeah.
So it made me weary of the next time something really bad happens. And by really bad, I'm going to go with the sense of
super volcano, ash in the air, clouded, like dark sky. Are we going to live? Like,
so like, I actually had a quick look of the exact numbers, and this was maybe a week and a half ago in the notes. And there was 137 million cases tracked worldwide. So some people had recovered, 78 million had recovered. There was about 3 million associated with deaths, right? So there was lots of deaths. There was deaths. So I'm not going to suggest that, it was completely fine. People were dying. Whether it was comorbidity issues or other reasons as to why people are dying, I'll leave that off the table. COVID obviously created a scenario where people, managed to find themselves in a position where they weren't before and caused death or other harm. Cool. But if let's just say the mortality rate of such a virus was much higher, so rather than say 5%, it was 50%, or it was a war or a super volcano, and it got really dire, I just thought, man, I don't think our society now is ready for something like this. Like it just really struck me as we would be so panicked as to become almost into a fighting stance against just like our neighbors for the fact of getting like a bag of vegetables. And I was like, ooh, okay. The malevolence that Jordan Peterson talks about, it's there, and it would show itself really easily
when it comes to the surface. Yeah, so I think you made a good point there, which was, I was saying like a tension in the air, but that's kind of bullshit. Like, what actually is that? So I think it's all it made me realize just how much the subtle things really matter. So everyone walking maybe 5% faster in the shopping center. Everyone maybe you'd maybe see people walking and then take that extra step to the side so they're not near that person. All those things like that I think do add up into that collective feeling, and that's something like subconsciously you're like, I'm not going to realize that person's walking faster, but in the subconscious it's there, and it's like, hey, watch out for that. So I was going to say, like, the only time I've ever felt anything similar to that was when I was in Guatemala City. And that was where, I couldn't put a finger on exactly what was wrong, but that was a place where I probably shouldn't have been. And I was taking risks walking around in the city in broad daylight. Because even that was probably like, you shouldn't do that. And it's like, what is it exactly? Well, I saw a lot of young working aged men, 20 to 40, just hanging out in the public square. Okay, that's probably like a bad sign. That's not something you really want to see in a city. you'd see, police just randomly frisking people from, like, sort of they're just sitting there doing nothing. It's like, okay.
Things
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The other one as well. So that this is the big one that I sort of noted down because, so I believe when COVID began, really that March, April period, everything was happening. And it wasn't until a couple of months later that in the Harvard Business Review, this person actually put up an article about, what is everyone feeling? Like, what is this feeling at the moment that everyone is feeling that you're unsure about and what's been happening? And he actually defined it. It was like, you're feeling grief for your life. So actually, let me pull the definition of grief.
Like a preemptive grief or something.
Well, not a preemptive grief. So I went back to see the definition because when I read that, I read the article, and when I reviewed it for this today, I was like, okay, it made sense. Because for me, I always thought, grief, you'd attach it like, that person died, or your dog died, or something terrible has happened, right? So grief is the response to loss, particularly to the loss of someone or some living thing that has died, to which a bond or affection was formed. Although conventionally focused on the emotional response to loss, grief also has physical, cognitive, behavioral, social, cultural, spiritual, and philosophical dimensions.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Because I was going to say, probably a loss of control is what I would have guessed that people are feeling. Because this may be one of the first times where it's, I have money, I can do whatever the shit I want. Well, no, in this case, you can be as rich as you want, but you ain't doing shit.
Yeah, exactly. So I think collectively, and even I felt this, because I couldn't really explain it at the very beginning when I had to stop going to the gym. So for me, I've been always going to the gym.
That's like,
and I was like,
it's like Juan losing a grandma right
and
now.
I like that. For me, I'm like, I remember specifically that moment when they were like, hey, gyms are closing.
Yeah.
And I went to the Chermside Good Life. I remember Chermside Good Life, the last session, I went there, got a workout. I remember walking to work, going back there at midday when they were going to close at midday. And I saw all the personal trainers outside being like, what are we going to do now? Because I think it was known at that time that they could do training out in parks, but how many people, and that was really unknown. And I remember that moment feeling like really dejected and going, what now? And I ended up having to move my workouts to outdoor parks, and they started getting banned up. So it was like indoor workouts. I remember going through that whole period, feeling down, not fully depressed, but I thought, what's this sort of feeling? And then when I read that article, I thought, yes, this is exactly what I felt like. And I think most people would have felt that, just like grief of just losing something that you always expected to be there. So I think that's, I don't know, did you feel any particular, if I was termed grief about any loss? So, because for you, and I guess we were saying this earlier, it's not like COVID really affected your training. You're already doing outdoor training.
Yeah. So for me, like, just a list of things, like, I'm relatively introverted. I really don't go out that much. I don't have group activities per se, and the stuff I just spend a lot of time alone. So in terms of all of that, and then the things I do with my family are also relatively,
they could be scaled back.
Yeah, for sure. So for me, like, routine changes, the only thing really changed was I couldn't use pull-up bars anymore. So I just had to do more like handstand work.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all right. And then, we were really kicking off the podcast in here. So I was spending a lot of time just getting shit sorted
doing
here.
That, yeah.
Thank God we moved in before.
That's true.
That would have been a nightmare. That would have been really shit.
That would be shit. That's a good point.
Yeah. So for me, not too much stuff. But I was wondering, like, what do you think about, so we've probably all seen that like little infographic where it's good times create soft people create bad times create like good people.
Yeah,
good
I think the actual
like
one is, it's hard men create good times create soft men create hard times create hard men.
There you go.
But let's just say not men.
Yeah,
it's just everybody.
Just people. Yeah. What do you think that's there's some truth to that?
100%. Yeah. It just made me think, and again, going back to my original whole thing of the culture and society as a broad aspect, I think there's, like, if you saw, take it another way, if I saw how would people have reacted to this in the 1940s, I think the reaction would have been very different to today. Now, there's obviously been a lot of changes to culture and the way that people get treated, right? Because the treatment then was very different to how it is now. But I do think that there is the loss aversion that we have today, maybe comparatively, I feel like it's more than it was back then.
Yeah. So even though it might not be as much in terms of, GDP percentage or in terms of actual lives lost, people in World War II getting their brother, their aunt, their, cousin, sister, all of them dying.
Yeah.
For us, it's maybe like, some elderly grandparents or elderly family members for the most part. But that shock level would be way, way higher.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe that's a good way of telling me. I think the shock level of today puts us in a place where we're very weak or very soft. Very weak and soft. We're very mere mortal-like in reacting to the world alike, the things that happen in the world. Because, I think if we were really faced with true atrocities today, like we would handle them in a really shit way in comparison to how it was handled a long time back.
Yeah. See, I'd agree with that, but then I'd also add just, I'm not necessarily sure that's a bad thing. So soft people means that there are good times.
Correct,
So it's sort of, you actually really, all things being considered, you'd rather people be soft because that means, well, there's good times.
It's good times, yeah.
So it's like,
I mean, the best like scenario there is good times. Hard people.
Yeah.
And that's why I like stoicism. Like I like that aspect of stoicism where it's actually make you, introduce hardness and challenges to your life so that it's not so, for any reason as to be negative. It's to be like, no, it's so you can see the other parable of positivity in so much of a better life.
Yeah. Almost just like a preparation. And so, that would be a really shit strategy if we could control most things. So, if Corona started to happen and then someone's just like, flick the switch, this will be done in a couple of weeks. Well, okay, then you probably don't really need to practice stoicism because it's sort of like a wasted effort.
Yes.
But as we all saw, that's not really what happened.
That's not what happened, no. Just another one in terms of the learning. So a little bit on the grief touched on gym and fitness. So I talked about it before as well, the comorbidity issue. So a lot of people who were dying, not all of them, but a lot of people, there was comorbidity issues in terms of they were obese, they weren't well in other manners or forms. And so that paired up with COVID is what caused them to die. Now, whatever, like I'm not going to go into any of the science or anything, so I'm not going to lie to you. There's no way I know any of that, right? We can only sort of guesstimate with what's going on.
Straight up.
We are mere mortals, not the mere doctors. But from my mind, it became so evident to me of the importance of being healthy and fit. Just above almost everything else, especially when I started hearing people's, not old people, but some of the family members in Colombia who were younger and had COVID, and it's like, they feel terrible and whatnot. And it just made me think from listening to a lot of other podcasts, the difference between a healthy, someone who takes care of themselves, eats well, trains, in their 40s, and they're like, oh, I didn't even know I had COVID. Like I just did not know in comparison to another 40-year-old who is a little bit overweight, maybe not look after themselves and their immune system is just shot and not being able to, fight back against a virus. It doesn't even have to be COVID. It can be any virus. And I just went, wow, it just even cemented more in my mind. Like, okay, I have to, when it comes to health, be able to prioritize that quite well. And I know that I won't say deprioritized, but not prioritize enough sleep. But it is one of those things that made me think about, okay, whether it's sleep, whether it's supplements, whether it's food, it's my normal training, like it's going to be holistic enough that it's like I'm still trying to put it as high as possible. So I'm not saying, oh, okay, well, making more money is going to be more beneficial. Well, that's a very, very tactical short term because you might end up dying because of whatever immune system issues or anything else.
Yeah, like you increase your anxiety, your stress, and then
So I just cemented for me. I'm like, yes, this is what I'm going to train or do some sort of health stuff for like the rest of my life. There is no debating that.
Yeah.
If hopefully 70 years from now, I'll be in my hundreds and I'll still be doing some ring muscle ups. That's going to be the centenarian Olympics, and I'll be doing some ring muscle ups. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's a really that's a good one to take away for sure. I used to never believe the sort of saying of like, I got real fit, I got real healthy, and I stopped getting sick because I thought I was relatively healthy and fit, and I was still getting sick. Like I would still catch the cold, once every year or so.
Yeah.
But I think there's sort of only like 2 years of evidence, but I don't think I've really been sick for a while now.
Well, this is my next one. This is going to be my next one of some of the learnings. In reverse, I haven't been sick in a really long time. So ever since COVID began, I guess that March, April period of 2020, I just have not been sick ever since then. And yes, there's been you've been at home, you haven't been out and about, you haven't been using public transport as much. So there's reasons as to why you wouldn't be infected by another virus.
A little bit less exposure.
Yeah, so there's less exposure for sure. But I don't know what it is. But yeah, I just have not been sick as much. I don't know whether that's a comparison in terms of being healthier or what it is, but I've just gone,
Yeah, and like only anecdotal, but my brother was quite sick in January, and I was hanging around the house like all the time with him, and I didn't get it then, so it's usually that stuff gets passed on to me. There's this one dude I used to work with, Kenny, motherfucking Kenny. Every single time he would come into the office and just spread his sickness, and it would just
don't do that.
Bam, 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 bam.
Everyone gets
people going down left, right, and center.
Damn.
If you're listening, Kenny, there's many a days sick caused by you.
Caused by you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this is interesting one. So my next one, right, is I don't think we will ever look, at least in our lifetimes, at sneezing and coughing or sickness the same ever again.
Okay.
So pre-COVID, imagine pre-COVID, and I see this in two places. So pre-COVID, if you saw someone at the workplace sneezing, and looking a bit sick, you'd go home. You're sick or whatever, or being like, oh, you're a bit unwell, what happened? And maybe you might even know, like, oh, I'm going to get a cold.
Yeah, or like you'd make a joke about it as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, so both in the workplace, a couple of months ago, someone sneezed just in the workplace when we went back to the city, and people are like, go get tested, like, go get tested now, and even as of late, like, it's been a good period now where we've got no theoretical cases in Brisbane, or at least in Queensland, and it's still like, someone will sneeze and feel unwell and be like, should go get tested. You should go. Like, people are kind of like back away and step away. Some people are still wearing masks at the office, kind of when they get close to people.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be a really long time where we started finding just when people are sneezing and being like, oh, yeah, whatever, it's a flu or it's a virus, and not being like, ooh, apprehensive of getting close.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen that or experienced that at all.
Yeah, not so much for me, but I can totally imagine that. And that's, probably a good thing. Where is it going to get to the level of, when you're out in the shopping center and someone sneezes, like devil cross, get away from me sort of thing.
Kick them in the head and run away.
But, when we're in Japan, that was sort of nice. People were respectful. They were wearing a mask because they were sick.
Yep.
And going about, respectful of other people. I like that.
That's true.
That's cool.
Yeah. Before they get over, the other one was in CrossFit, so in the gym. There's a particular cough. I think they called it. Now, this could be wrong because I just heard this and I didn't have time to verify this.
Like
but I believe it's called the Fran cough. So there's a particular workout called the Fran, and it just strikes my mind. I'm pretty sure it's this one because you just move a lot of weight really quickly. And we did a workout which was similar to that, but it was longer. And at the end of that, everybody was coughing, like in this manner of Frank, because you get this, it's like tearing off the lung blood vessels, and you get it through your lungs. So you're like, and like everyone was kind of coughing like that, and like they made a joke being like, oh, everyone's got the Frank cough, but some other people were like, oh, we're gonna get sick here. And like people were like, oh, did you sign into the the COVID scanner thing? So there's still even that in some other places.
Bro, you talk about getting healthy, and then you talk about
breaking my lungs,
testing out your lungs. Here's one for me. How has your news and attention to short-term things changed? So there was that huge thing, like when you're talking about comorbidity, I just wrote down too much data, because there was so much shit going out. There was, you could go onto Twitter and find out these things. You could, go to 6 different websites. All of them are going to give different death rates. All of them are going to get different stuff. All of them are going to say, this is what's going to happen. The government's doing this, yada, yada, yada.
Yep.
We followed it for a little bit. I was following that John Hopkins map, which was sort of nice to see, interesting. It's like almost like a little game. Ooh, look at this. And then it just got, I was already at a point of like zero caring. Yeah. And then it got to a point of like zero caring, but then I cared because, okay, potentially this could be, something that requires drastic action.
Yeah.
voluntarily like forcing myself in the house for months at a time, sort of thing. But then it just reached a tipping point where I just went like, I don't care anymore. It's to do with my health, my life, but so are all the other things. So is terrorism. So is GDP and financial stuff. So it had that immediate like boosting effect of increasing my news consumption, and then I realized like, nah, this is sort of like all the other stuff. It's not that different.
Yeah. What are we talking about? What were they listening to that? Oh, yeah. Bjorn/Peterson conversation where they were talking about how they track 95% of comets, but they don't go and track, or meteors, and then they go and track the rest of the 5% because, be damned. If we're going to die from those extra 5%, then we die. That's what's going to happen. And I felt as part of one of my learnings was, when COVID was hitting, man, I enjoy keeping up with the news. But this was like a next level of there's so much information of overload that I also got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm going to stop looking at it broadly. And I was just focusing on stocks and a couple of other things. Because if I was to keep up with absolutely everything else that was going on, like numbers, this is being locked down, this is happening, it would just be so much.
Was the virus, man-made? Was it, from the bat on the comet? Was it from whatever? Just so much. And that's the other problem with it. It got all this other shit wrapped up into it. So then it was like, Trump's a racist because he hates Asians. And then it's like, our government is incompetent and they're taking away our freedoms. Damn it, we'll have our freedoms.
Yeah, it's like it sort of brought in like every type of political.
Every other issue just got focused on this one thing, and then it made it like supercharged. Damn, man.
Maybe that's another little takeaway of COVID. I think that when there's don't ever spoil don't spoil good news. And I think there's a different saying. It's like don't spoil a bad action or a bad event for good news. So I think I saw that so much with the media, where no matter what it was just like every day you would check something on the headlines. It'd be like massive bold red, like 2 more cases. God damn it. There's things happening. And like, I can just imagine anyone who works in media in the terms of like channel 7 or 9 or 10, you would have just had such an easy life for the last year because you would have just been like, what do I check on? Latest numbers. Bang. That's it. Like, don't have to even do any more information or tracking. Just throw that in. That's what people care about.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So,
so here's one that I probably like a big learning for me, actually. Maybe even my biggest, which is big events don't stuff you up. It's the small stuff. So if I looked at, this past year, so my... maybe the year before. So my yearly goals for that year. So that was stuff related to obviously the fitness challenge, but then it was related to like the meetup groups, getting out more. It was related to reading 50 books. It was related to like this wisdom worksheet thing that I was doing. It was related to so much different stuff. What was it if I look back now? And that was, it sort of took out half of that year, I guess, for me. So I'm sort of like the March to October. What was it that really stuffed me up from achieving those things? Was it Corona? No, it wasn't. Handstand wise, it was me trying to catch a ball from you and fucking up my hand. That took like 9 weeks out of my training. The meetup groups, it stopped them, but it was because I wasn't even doing them anyway. Like I was living with my parents, and so I wasn't near the city, so I wasn't willing to go and do that hour, hour back and forth of travel to actually go there. The reading, was it because Corona stopped me from reading? No, it was because I was spending like a lot of time. Damn COVID. Maybe blind. Couldn't read. It was spending more time with the girlfriend and with friends, and just really not prioritizing it. So all these sort of things, I can look back and I can say,
it was the year of COVID. That's
COVID,
the reason.
Yeah, that's why I didn't, that's why I only barely read 50 books. That was why I didn't get out as much as I wanted to. But it's like, no, if you like really, and there's nice having goals because you can sort of look at it objectively, a year passed and be like, what actually was it? It wasn't COVID.
Wasn't COVID. It was that's a really good point. Just like, we already talked about it, but self-care is not self-indulgence if it leads to improved immunity. So there's a little summary on, self-care. I took that as to be like health, fitness, everything like that. So just even more broadly, it also made me realize like, if I wanted to have cold bath, hot bath, sort of like trying all self-care in terms of, okay, no, I'm going to rest up. Actually, if it's towards improving my immunity or improving my overall health, then it's not self-indulgence. It's actually quite good for me. And I shouldn't view it as like, weak that you're having to like lay down and rest. It's okay. Yeah. One big one that I'll pair these two up. One is what it made me realize more and more is the inequality of wealth that's getting spread out. So I don't know if COVID caused it so much or if it just sort of highlighted that. But then I'll pair that with just having a stash, like something I learned is having a stash ready in terms of cash or money in the wings for whatever may happen. And I know Naval Ravikant said this, I'm pretty sure it was pre-COVID, where he used to say people should have 3 months worth of like money set aside, and he increased it to a year. And I remember listening to that being like, a year? What the hell? Yeah. Why would you want to do that? Case in point, exactly fucking this. Like, COVID happens or something else might happen, and you never know, you lose your job. For me, I lost a job, but I was like very much facing a time where I was like, I don't know if I'm going to have this job or not, just in terms of what it was. My tenant left one of my properties. So I was like, what the hell? Go on. Like, what am I going to do? Got to follow this up. So there's all this stuff happening where you got to be like, okay, this is where you want to have that availability of a backup, and not just a backup of maybe 3 months. It might even, to say for the better, maybe a year might be maybe a bit too extreme. Depends on how people live. But hell, it would give you good support given that, COVID came out of nowhere, theoretically came in a couple of months. But just the same, let's just say something random happens like a super volcano or another virus, and then, you don't have a job, or you really have to hunker down and you got to live, in your own house or whatever for a very extended period of time. If you're not making any income and you need money from some source, hell, it's going to be good if you're able to do that. So for me, I was like, okay, but then, and not that it affected me, but more broadly, just the wealth inequality that that it continued what was already there. So I think pre-COVID, I probably interacted with enough people that I could see, there's people on, a general level of income and living standards. I can see some that are maybe starting the workforce and at a lower level. I understand maybe a really low income level, what it may be, but I can't even consider what it might be like to be in a developing country or something. And I understand higher level income. Cool, fantastic. But now, I'm not even going to say early COVID, I'm talking like now, just after COVID starting to really balance out, the markets have come back or almost like, back to the top. I just see broadly, and I don't know if it's where I'm interacting with the people or what I'm like consuming, but there's just this super frothy top point of like people who have extreme wealth. There's maybe the usual band in the middle, and then everyone else has just gone like chumped and spit out. Like there would be people out there who lost jobs, houses, everything, and they're just like, man. And case in point is, US, not so much in Australia, but in US, California just went into a shithole. Like everybody, like 2 million people are living homeless in random tents all over Venice Beach and shit like that. And people are just leaving. People are completely leaving to go to another state because it's just such a shit show. And it just makes you go, wow, once a place where you would have thought like, it's where the really rich people are and it's so nice. Man, it's just now becoming a massive divide between the really rich and the middle and the poor. Like those who can have and those who don't have.
Yeah, maybe just highlight it a bit more. And that's what, big change tends to do as well. That being said, there's probably people who are wealthy, but leveraged themselves to the extreme and then went tits up and just lost everything.
Well, here's a crazy stat I didn't know about. Have you heard of Dogecoin?
No. What's that?
Okay. So to the listeners at home, if you don't know Dogecoin, and obviously it came to my mind that more people probably know about this because my sister messaged me about Dogecoin 2 weeks ago and was like, what's going on about Dogecoin? So Dogecoin was, $0.00001 a long time back. It's a crypto coin. It started getting picked up by people, being bought. Basically, it got all the way up to 63 cents, I think, at one point, right? Now, it made a lot of people a lot of money, just like randomly, because people wouldn't have expected. Like if you had $1,000 2 years ago, you basically almost had 100 grand, 200 grand of this. So I saw this, and I can't obviously verify this is true, but someone's obviously checked this depending on the wallet and the crypto length. But it said that there is one person who owns 28% of all Dogecoins. And there's 11 wallets who own 75% of all Dogecoins. So you think like, oh, it's a bit like, but there is literally 11 wallets, and that could be 11 people who own 3/4 of all of Dogecoin.
One person who owns 11 wallets.
Yeah, it definitely could. And I think Dogecoin is worth 40. I think it got up to a market value of $52 billion. So it's 11 wallets out there owned 75% of 52 billion. So it's a whole lot of money in just a couple of people's hands.
Yeah.
So it's like stuff like that where I went, wow, there is some people out there who it's not undeserved money, because they deserve it in the fact that it got there. Fine, it's undeserved. But it is imagine giving $50 million to Joey or $50 billion to Joey. And it's not to say like Joey wouldn't know what to do with it.
Yeah, exactly.
And you would be like, what is Joey going? That's scary. That's a scary thought.
Very scary.
It's like, giving me $50 billion, I'd be like, that's scary. Like, I don't actually know what to do. You don't know how to manage it.
Would be terrified. Yeah.
So I think that's where I see the wealth inequality that COVID might have, I'm not saying it created, I think it just highlighted it even more, where it makes me, it doesn't make me scared. It makes me a little bit concerned. Okay. Because I've seen a lot of stuff from Ray Dalio, and you can go find all his stuff that he's put up because it's a lot, but around the more wealth inequality that happens between nations, and that generally tends to start a lot of economic wars, and that goes into normal wars. So a lot of this wealth inequality you can see can start to breed a lot of fighting in between people when you have, whatever, like 1 million really rich people in California, and then you have like 5 million people who are living homeless, and it's like, okay, that's not adding up. And I don't know if you've listened to much of Joe Rogan lately, but it was something saying like a lot of these, so basically some of these homeless people, you could be in your mansion in California, and there could be all these homeless people just living on your front garden, and you could be like, oh, I'm just going to sell this house. Like, okay. But to even try to sell the house and take photos or get people to come through, you can't kick the homeless people out because there's no, I think it's either illegal or you just can't do it. So people can't even sell the houses because there's all these homeless people just living everywhere, like defecating all over the place. It's like madness. Yeah,
some crazy stuff going on, man.
Right.
Maybe we'll have to do a podcast on wealth inequality, because that's a huge topic.
It is a big one.
All right, I think I'm about done. So,
well, okay, I've got one last thing. So, it's you can hope for stability, but you best be prepared for otherwise. So this is just going back a little bit to echoing on stoicism and those thoughts. And what it made me realize is you really have to be prepared to get uncomfortable at any point and being okay with it, even if you're not prepared in the sense that you know exactly how to do it. But just when something happens, having a mindset that can go, okay, I can be robust and tackle it head on, as opposed to being like frozen and then shit just hits a fan and then you don't know what to do.
Yeah, I think adding to that would be having a bit of knowledge about history as well. So, that we've had panics before, the AIDS crisis. So I was asking my dad about this. He was just saying, there was a period where you didn't know how it was spreading. You didn't know it was, pretty much exclusively in the homosexual community.
Yep.
And so it was sort of like, can I have, relations with this woman? Like, is this going to kill me sort of thing? So like having a little bit of knowledge about history, and then, just preparedness. And it's sort of hard because some things you can't prepare for, particularly. So for example, my portfolio dropped 40% in 3 weeks. That's normally something where I'd be like, shit. But thankfully, it's funny like saying this now, thankfully, when I first started investing, I was sitting on roughly equivalent losses for like 2 years.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Until, I started to do better, started to understand a bit more, and, just playing the long game, stuff tends to go upwards. So, did I prepare for that? Well, it's not like an active preparedness, but having experienced something like that before does make you realize, oh, okay, this thing, it'll probably pass. Like, it's probably not the end of the world.
Yeah.
So,
like, has it prepared you for when your shares go down 99%?
Well, yeah, I should probably, good investing advice here. I'll invest in any crypto coin now, just so for when the bubble comes and the bubble bursts, and it will happen, people. This is financial advice.
Yeah.
I'll experience what it's like to lose.
Everything.
An absurd amount of money very, very, very quickly.
I was gonna. I won't even explain it. I'll leave this with the listeners as we end a little bit of this. Go look up Safe Moon as a crypto coin and how it works. That will tell you what madness awaits for us.
Yeah.
Anyways, Karen, that has been our conversation around COVID and learnings. Hope you guys enjoyed. Karen's got a little bit of a note here. No, hold on. Let me take it back. I always forget this.
You always do.
So I've got to get some learnings into me. Me mortal moment. Mine is grief comes in all shapes and sizes. Be on the lookout. Be on the lookout, folks. Karen?
Mine's going to be a bit of a longer one, so I'm going to read a poem for us first.
Yes. This is your own poem?
No, it's not. No. I know we enjoyed my try poetry with John Keats about the diamond hands and cauliflower, but no, this is a poem by John Donne, or John Donne, I'm not sure, Donne. And this is like 16th century sort of poetry, so I really don't know how to say it. No man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. If a clod be washed away by the sea, Europe is the less. As well as if I don't know what this word is, promontory, as well as if a manor of thy friends or of thine own were, and this is like manners, man. Talk about inequality back in the day, earning manners. Any man's death diminishes me because I am involved in mankind, and therefore never send to know for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. I actually never knew this, but
tolls for thee.
This is the inspiration for Us Not For Whom the Bell Tolls, It Tolls For Thee, the sort of book by Ernest Hemingway. Book, or was it a movie? I'm not sure. And then no man is an island entire of itself. This dude has like two of the like quotes that I use quite frequently. Never knew where it came from. Both of them in the same thing.
Damn.
So my mere mortal moment. No man is an island, but maybe I'm an archipelago. I don't know. I hate that word. Archipelago. That's it.
Archipelago.
So I was sort of thinking like, one of the other learnings I took from this is I'm pretty fine on my own, but I do need to test this. So I'm actually going to take my little retreat, be on my own for 6 days, actually on my own, see what it's like. But if I'm not an island, like maybe I'm part of a archipelago. Maybe I can like not be part of the continent because it didn't hurt me too much. Like the COVID, like that's my main learning.
Good. Okay. All right. For the next theme podcast, what we're going to be talking about?
Yes. So there is a short story by a lady named Ursula K. Le Guin. And it's called The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas. So read it, people, and we'll be talking about that. It's a pretty good story. It doesn't take too long to read. It's like 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Yeah, if you want to go even quicker, find it on YouTube, put it on speed 1.25.
Yep.
You'll smash through it.
Done.
So that'll be the easiest way. All right, folks. I hope you enjoyed the conversation about COVID. If you enjoyed our learnings, of course, learnings is what we're all about. You can go back and find a lot of other learnings in all the other podcasts that we do, whether it's goal setting. I was actually talking to someone about this in CrossFit. He asked me, very cool. You do Mere Mortals, Mere Mortals podcast. Was it about goal setting, lessons, learnings, conversations, talking,
meditation,
deep thoughts, lighthearted content?
Yes.
It's all in one place. Make sure you subscribe, you like, you do all the good stuff.
All that.
But for now, that's all. Mere Mortals, one out.
Karen out.
Shoo!